Welcome to Create Your Happy, the podcast that empowers conscious women in life, relationship, and business. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness, hussy, and conscious funpreneur on a mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. Now get ready, because on this very special bonus season, we are going to take your entrepreneurial journey to a whole nother level. These uncut conversations are designed to support you as you unleash your entrepreneurial brilliance upon the world. My incredible guests and I have come together with a shared vision to empower women to fully embrace their humanness, find their unique voice, and lead with love. All right, gorgeous, it's time to get curious and become inspired. It's time to create your happy. And we are back for another, I don't like the word installment, that sounds off, but I can't think of a better word for that this morning. So another installment of this incredible masterclass series. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so grateful that you are here. And we are going to dive in again this week on some goodness for the authors and aspiring authors. So let us know who you are, where you're at. Let us know if you're watching the replay. Let us know if you have questions. We would absolutely love to hear your questions so we can answer them for you. And on that note, welcome to the Masterclass series today with me, Danielle Perlin-Good, who is the Soul-Aligned Ghostwriter. And I'm super excited to share this conversation about how to elevate your author's or writer's mindset so that you are in the right space to get all of that beautiful creativity out of your brilliant mind and onto the pages so that it can be shared and impact so many people out there. So welcome to the show, Danielle. I would love for you to just introduce yourself, a little bit about you, tell us your background, how you got to where you are. I know we all have these incredible stories of what led us to where we are today. So I'd love to invite you to share yours here.
Thank you so much, Christy, for having me here. And hello to everybody watching live, watching the replay. Thank you for spending some time getting to learn more about this subject and about me. As for me and my background, I have a background in digital marketing. I have over 18 years of writing and editing experience. I have a BS in news editorial journalism. And I started out my career journey actually working at the Tribune many years ago. I was in a mass layoff and took a journey through freelancing, social media marketing, and eventually landed at a local publishing company. And when I was pregnant with my son, I decided to own business. And I was nursing him at 1 a.m. one night. I was listening to an audiobook. I believe it was Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. And I had this epiphany where I knew, and I'm going to use the word unstuck because it's very appropriate for our conversation today.
Yeah.
And I felt this urge and this need to be unstuck from where I was. I said I wanted to start this business. I said I wanted to do all these things, but I wasn't acting. I wasn't doing the things that I really wanted to be doing. And in the same week, I hired a sleep consultant and my first business coach. And my husband wanted to murder me, but that's a different story for a different day. And I was so keen on making a difference in my life and wanting more for my kids and for myself. I started book coaching. I started editing. I started telling everybody this is what I was doing now. I started learning as much as I could. I knew I had the background to become the person I knew I wanted to become. And I needed the confidence and the mindset in order to do that. Throughout the last several years, I have done so much work on myself and work with others on their mindset. And that is how I came up with this subject of today's keynote and today's conversation, where we talk about the writer's mindset, because I had so many people throughout my journey say, Danielle, I'm suffering from writer's block. I can't get to where I want to go. And I would say, no, I believe there's no such thing as writer's block. I actually believe writer's block is completely based on where your mind is. And it has to do with how you're spending your time, how you're expending your energy. It depends on what you're doing to value your mind and your mindset, and then your knowledge and how much knowledge you need to gain in order to write what you want to write, or how much knowledge you have, and then your confidence in that knowledge. That's a little bit about me and my background.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. And it's so true that mindset, honestly, everything external is a reflection of the internal. And so when we really grasp this, we realize that the work that we need to do is often within ourselves. And that is the foundation, right? That is where we can make those colossal shifts in our external experience. It actually comes from shifting within. And so you're absolutely right. Focusing on the mind and figuring out, it's not figuring out, it's actually like an unlearning all of the shitty mind things that seem like they're in your way, when the truth is you are not your mind. You are actually the observer of it. And when you can utilize your mind to its greatest capacity, instead of letting it run on autopilot with lots of these beliefs from our past experience kind of ruling the show, when we can really get control of it, just and simply in recognizing that we're not our mind, and then we can use it for our benefit to pull forth that wisdom, that knowledge, that confidence. All of it exists within us. We don't have to create anything really outside of ourselves. This is a deep dive into you, into your mind, and how to really harness all of that power that you have within you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I always talk about two main pain points that specifically my ghostwriting clients have. And one is lack of time, and one is lack of knowledge. So you have to know yourself, and you have to know where your value system is and where you're expending your energy and where you're expending your resources. Mm-hmm. If you know that you don't actually have the time to write your book, then you have to figure out, are you able to make time to do that in the 24 hours that you have on a daily basis, right? And we can get into what that means and how you're expending your time. And I do that with my clients. I have literally sat down with clients before and gone through their schedules and said, okay, if you're telling me you don't actually have time to write, then what are you doing from these hours to these hours? And we go through that together, because sometimes it takes that support to really dive in and understand how you're really using your time. And then the lack of knowledge is the fact that not everybody who has an expertise knows how to organize their thoughts into a book. Some people do, some people don't. And it's okay if you don't want to learn how to do that. I talk about our knowledge bank, right? Where we have all of these things that we want to learn. We can learn anything we want. We were just talking about that. You can learn how to format your book on Amazon if you want to. You can learn how to fix a bike tire. You can learn and literally anything you want. You can go on YouTube, go on Reddit. You can, the world is your oyster now, right? But how do you want to use your time? And do you want to add that to your knowledge bank? Or do you want somebody else to help you and teach you, or someone else to do it for you? I like to use a cleaning example, for instance, is if you have a big house or even an apartment and you keep saying, I really need to clean my house. I really need to clean my house. I don't have time to clean my house. Do you actually not have time to clean your house? And then do you want to hire cleaners to clean your house? And then you pay cleaners to come and clean your house, and you feel really happy. You're so happy that you paid them for that service. You're so happy that your house is clean and that you didn't have to do it. And how does that make you feel? How does that bring your energy level up, right? Because when you have a clean home, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, right? And that's how it should feel when you spend your time wisely, when you spend your energy wisely, when you spend your money wisely. And then when your mindset is in the right frame, so that you can understand how you want to add to that knowledge bank.
I think it's important to note here, one thing that I really kind of come back to when someone says, I don't have time, and I catch myself and do the same thing with me, is I ask myself, do I really not have time, or am I not prioritizing this? Because the truth is, we have time for our priorities. And so if we are finding ourselves often saying, I don't have time, it is literally actually because you're not prioritizing that thing. And oftentimes we don't think we're prioritizing anything else, but our mind and our actions are showing a different story, right? They're showing the mindless scrolling, the daydreaming, which isn't always a bad thing, but the point is not about what you're doing in the interim. It's taking radical responsibility for the fact that you do have time. And if you prioritize doing that thing to the level you say you want to prioritize it, time will be available, because this will be the top of your mind instead of the last thing on your mind that's not getting the time and attention that it truly deserves. So if you are finding yourself saying, this was for anything, I don't have time, try this on. Just change that sentence around and say, I'm not prioritizing such and such a task. Let's see how that lands. Because it's okay if you're not prioritizing it. There's nothing good or bad or right or wrong about it. It's just an awareness, right? Because if you're not prioritizing it, then why are you beating yourself up over not finding the time? And that's the cycle we often get in, right? And that's completely counterproductive. That's never going to get your book written, is never going to get that dream out there. What you need to do is ultimately just really be clear with yourself about what it is that you wish to create, what your priorities are, and go out and live that. And like you said, the knowledge is one thing, and the experiential putting that knowledge into practice is another, which is why it's so helpful to have a mentor, a business coach, healers, editors, supporting crew and staff in your life, ultimately, right? For all of the incredible things that you want to do, because you aren't gifted with all of those incredible things. There are going to be some things that you don't know yet, or don't really have interest in learning. And those are perfect opportunities to delegate, to build your team, and to bring in those people that you're going to get so excited to work with.
Exactly. And I want to share a quote by Gay Hendricks. He's the author of The Big Leap, Conquer Your Hidden Fear and Take Life to the Next Level. I highly recommend this book. It is very short and it is so impactful, so powerful. It is one of my absolute favorite self-help personal growth books. So he says, when you say, I don't have time to do that right now, you're telling a polite lie to avoid saying, I don't want to do that right now. So the other really big, important question that you can ask yourself is, are you procrastinating? What does procrastination mean to you? How does procrastination play a role in your life? And if you have been wanting to write this book for 10 years, I talked to somebody the other day who said, I've been wanting to write this book for 18 years. Can you imagine wanting to write a book for 18 years and being able to say that over and over again every single year, but then not necessarily knowing what to do about it, or knowing how to go about doing it, and not knowing what type of support is out there, not knowing what type of support you need? This is an opportunity for everybody listening, for everyone out there, to understand that there are benefits of having support, and there are also benefits of you understanding how you're really using your time. And then the other question to ask yourself is, am I being realistic, right? Because to me, it's really important, and this is something I still work on, and I have clients that still work on this, is, are you being realistic with how much time a task is going to take you? Are you being realistic with how much time the writing a book chapter is going to take you? How much time, proofing your journal, right? That, as we were just talking about, how much time is all of this going to take? Because a lot of times we underestimate.
We have a tendency.
We have a tendency to do that. I don't know if it's just because we're women, and I work with a lot of women. I'd say 80 to 85% of my clients are women. And we have these ideas, these grand ideas of, you have kids and you have You have so many different things going on. You have businesses, you have books, you have lots of things, speaking engagements. I have clients who have nonprofit foundations, and they have all these different things going on. And it's, oh, I can get that done. I can get that done. But if you do get that done, even what is left energy wise? Does that mean that you are getting less sleep and then you don't have energy to tackle everything else? Because guess what? If we don't get enough sleep and if we don't have that energy, it takes 2 to 3 times as long to complete a task, which involves time. So your energy is so critical to think about as well in this whole concoction.
We really have to take care of ourselves. That is what it boils down to. Ultimately, to me, as I talk about a lot on the podcast, it is ultimately this relationship with self. It is the foundation. It is the driving force behind everything else. The relationship that you have with yourself impacts your health, your relationship with other people, your energy, your ability to create. So your creative power, your productivity, all of those things really come down to loving and caring for yourself, right? And if you take good care of yourself, you get good sleep, you're fueling your body, you're moving your body in the ways that keep the energy moving and flowing, you're going to feel better. And what happens when you feel better? You can do better. You're more creative. You can come up with greater solutions. You go from problem focused mode to solution seeking mode, and the problems are just going to disappear like that because now you have all of this incredible brain power at its capacity, right? If we're not, we're probably functioning in survival mode, which is what my book Unstuck is about. And what you are sort of functioning in, as you mentioned, getting unstuck, is just on autopilot. So there isn't a lot of time for consciously planning how you wish to create, how you wish to use your skills. You get really stuck. And I say this having completely fully been there, in the complaining, the blaming, the making excuses, the storytelling. It comes down to a lot of the stories that we're telling ourselves, and that really impacts our mindset. And some of it is really sneaky. I'm still uncovering stuff that I'm like, whoa, where did that come from?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And going back to mindset, when we get up in the morning and you tell yourself, oh, I'm so tired, I didn't sleep enough. And that's the first thought that comes into your brain. And you repeat that to yourself in the first 5 to 10 minutes. And then you go to your phone and you scroll and you scroll, and there's shiny object syndrome going on. There's comparisons going on. There's all these things. And this all happens in the first 5 to 10 minutes of your day. Guess what? You can still turn it around. Of course, you can always turn things around. However, if you're starting your day like that, think about how that's going to impact the rest of your day in terms of your mindset and what you are doing to combat those thoughts is so important. So sometimes I'll get and I'm not saying we can't get into that stream of thought, because what happens is that does come about and we have to allow them in. But what I call that is our inner critic, right? We call, and you can name her if you want, you can give her a name. You can say, oh, it's the gremlin, it's Voldemort, whatever you want to call this critic. But when you let them in, it's so important for your energy level to understand and observe that thought and say, you know what? I'm consciously deciding to not go on that path right now. I'm consciously making an effort and deciding that this is not how I'm going to spend my day. If you wake up and you say, I can't get up today, I'm so tired, I don't know how I'm going to handle everything that's coming my way today, say, okay, take a beat, take a minute, and see if there's a way to reframe and reprogram your mind in those thoughts to say, you know what, I understand that I might be feeling tired, but what can I do to regain some energy this morning so I feel better and can conquer all of my tasks for today? And I can feel, and what's most important is you can feel good. You feel great. right? That's so important to realize that. And, the definition of energy is you can have an abundance of energy. You have an abundance of energy to play around with on a daily basis. So it's up to you every single day if you're going to play around with that energy and you're going to say, okay, I have this great amount of energy that I can expend in a beautiful, wonderful way. I can utilize my creativity well today. This is why the practices like affirmations can be so powerful and so important any time of day. So my recommendation always, even for my clients, because guess what? When you're writing a book, especially a nonfiction book, as I'm sure you are aware of as well, you can get in that mindset very easily because we can get triggered and we can go into the places where many years ago where we experienced very difficult things in our life. We experience these traumatic experiences. We are reopening those wounds once more. And when we do that, it is critical more than ever to take good care of ourselves. I talked with a book coaching client the other day, and she was telling me she really likes writing some of these stories about her life. She's writing a memoir about her life. And she really likes writing at night before bed. And we talked about what she's going to do after she writes and before she goes to bed. Because guess what? If she just writes and goes directly to bed and she's writing about all of these really traumatic experiences that happened to her many years ago, that's going to be difficult to sit with in bed in sleep. So it's important, and a lot of people don't think about, we don't think about it. I don't hear others necessarily talking about the importance of taking care of yourself while we're writing, while we're in a creative process, because these energy levels are critical, not only for our creative process, but to take care of ourselves and to also be able to process all of these emotions that are coming up. Because I guarantee you that with any nonfiction, even with a novel, with novelists, because a lot of novels are based on experiences that have happened to you in your life, or they're based on characters that you know of to some extent, right? And it's critical to understand that this is in your control. And that's a whole other conversation in terms of what's in your control, what's not in your control. Well, this is something in your control of how you deal with your mindset and your energy levels from when you wake up to when you go to bed every single day.
Taking care of yourself is just literally our most important job as a human, because we've come down this path, and this is sort of a tangent, but we've come down this path of learning how to be a human from other humans, and we don't have all of the information. So we're still, a lot of us, figuring things out along the way. I know I certainly am. And a lot of the systems that are in place actually really limit us and hold us back. The conditioning, the programming is in such a way that keeps us very small and very safe. And again, in the survival mode function of living. And the problem with survival mode is that 95% of our thoughts are like run by the subconscious. So we're not consciously aware of them until we stop and say, look at that, right? So again, coming back to this, stepping into the observer standpoint, looking at, okay, I will say this meat suit is tired. This meat suit is disappointed, but I don't have to make a whole story in my mind about that, right? Which is what happens when we wake up and, oh, I'm so tired and I don't know if I can get out of bed. I don't really know how I can do the thing. And all of a sudden we've got all of these stories and we find ourselves in a big thought spiral or emotional spiral, usually a jumble of the two. And so we want to just step back so we can observe and say, okay, I'm tired, or I'm feeling sort of some kind of emotional response. Mm-hmm. How can I move forward? How can I welcome that? Because ultimately we got to welcome that. Anything that we're resisting actually clings to us, like the toilet paper on the back of your dress when you've left the washroom. So we want to get rid of that. We don't want that trailer back there. We want to be consciously choosing. We want to be focused on that 5% of our conscious thought, because our thoughts really create our experience. And so if we're not mindful of that, it's all based on yesterday's news, right? But that TP trailing from our backside is what's creating our current experience. And that's just a situation right there.
Yeah. And it's also, it's so critical as well. You know, I like to talk about boundaries as well with yourself and with others, especially when you're in a creative process. And if you are writing a nonfiction book, specifically a memoir or personal growth, story, essay, book, what have you, it is likely that somebody in your life is not going to be thrilled with it. Or somebody in your life is not going to remember an incident in the same way you do. And that's okay, because a memoir and a personal growth book, it's your truth. It's not somebody else's truth. Because I have been asked before, oh, Danielle, my brother, my sister-in-law doesn't remember this incident this way. And I say, listen, if you're in a room, so me and you, Christy, we're in this room right now. We are having significantly different experiences because we're two different people. But guess what? In the same Zoom room, we're in the same show, but we are having different experiences. It's the same kind of mentality and energy levels that it takes to understand fully and comprehend that when you're writing anything that's nonfiction, your experience matters. I've had other females come to me, especially females, for some reason. It's always females who say to me, do you think this is a worthy idea? And let's talk about worthiness for a second as well. Everybody has a unique take on a generic idea. So I'm going to tell you right now, anybody who's listening, you have a book inside of you, even if you don't think you do, because you have had unique experiences. You have had life experiences that nobody else has experienced. And it is critical to always remember that every single day. So when you have these ideas, or when you think, oh, I don't know if my idea is worthy, I don't know if I can do this, and you go on that train, it's the same inner critic that comes in the mornings when you're tired, and the inner critic comes and says, oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I don't know if my idea is worthy. I don't know if I can do this. I want you to reframe and reprogram that again, and then go back and say, guess what? Actually, I am worthy. And having the confidence in yourself and in your abilities to know that what you have to say really does matter and will positively impact others in the world. And there's a quote by Christy Ling Spencer, and she says, edit only on those things that bring you and inspiration. Anything else is not worth your energy. So if somebody comes to me and has an issue with a family member, an issue with somebody else, I say, listen, we put up some type of boundary that's going to be healthy for you and your creative process. And I want everybody listening and watching to realize that and to think about how those things can impact their life and their creative process.
Yeah. Those boundaries are really crucial in all areas of life. And I was just reading Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart, and she says, and I'm gonna butcher this quote and not get it quite right because I don't have it right in front of me, but essentially the gist was that boundaries are a way of loving both you and me.
Mm-hmm.
So many people think that boundaries are a wall, they're a block. They mean that you have to cut people off. And this is indirect as women, in direct conflict with this idea that we have all onboarded that we are supposed to be nice, right? So this creates this gap of inauthenticity because we are trying to be nice because we're told that if we're not nice, that we have no value, right? We are supposed to be the good girl. We are supposed to behave. We are supposed to obey and listen and do the nice things and to give. And so we fear setting boundaries, but they're actually, I like to look at it as an invitation to other people, to how we can have a great connective relationship with one another. And this serves both you and I when we communicate. Same thing goes as far as writing, that creating that boundary within yourself is a way of solidifying those priorities that you've made to tie in your key values so that you are moving towards the desired outcomes that you want, to create your intentions and then act from that space, that aligned space that says, this is who I am. And this is how I'm going to achieve those intentions that I set forth. And this is how the people around me might be able to help me achieve that. And so instead of looking at this big wall around us, like, oh, I'm just going to bury myself in these boundaries to protect myself, it's actually a coming out of all of that, a releasing the chains, a clear invitation to, this is where I'm going and you want to join me.
I love that. And that is such a great reminder for everybody listening, because we love Brene Brown. I love her. I did listen to Atlas of the Heart, I believe a while ago when it first came out, but that is a really healthy and helpful reminder to get that back up again and go through that. And, a lot of people ask me, oh, how do I structure a book? How do I do this? And a lot of that is the logical side of writing a book. And all of that is important. But I like to come at this from a logical and a spiritual standpoint. And what we're talking about today and elevating the writer's mindset is very much about your spiritual side. And I have clients all across the board. Some of them love to be spiritual. Some of them are very religious in different religions. It doesn't really matter. But what matters is you're owning your truth and you're realizing how you can be your most vulnerable self on the page. And if we are not in a good place spiritually, our vulnerability is not going to come across well on the page, and you're going to lose your reader. It is a fact. And Brene Brown talks about vulnerability. She has a TED Talk all about the idea of vulnerability and being vulnerable. And I highly encourage everybody to watch that and listen to it. And it's critical to really understand that this way of thinking needs to happen along with the logical side of the creative process. Because being creative and writing, especially like I've been mentioning with nonfiction, you're writing about incidents in your own life. If you think about meeting a new friend or meeting a new coworker or colleague, or you go to an event or a party and you don't know anybody and you're introducing yourself for the first time, are you going to be your most vulnerable self right then and there? Probably not necessarily, because you're just getting to know them.
Yeah.
But what happens when you're writing your book is you want your readers to know, like, and trust you and have that credibility with the reader from the very, very start. And if we're not completely vulnerable and truthful from the start, it's going to be very difficult to gain that loyalty from the reader.
Absolutely. And I think that ultimately that requires us being vulnerable with ourselves first and foremost. And really doing that deep dive to figure out who we are, what the message we really want to convey is, our core values, how that aligns, what our boundaries are. This is all ultimately a journey of self-discovery, because you need to understand yourself well in order to really be able to express yourself in a way that is authentic and that is going to come across, that people are going to really relate to, right? That is coming from knowing yourself really well and then being able to communicate that externally. That's a game changer. And for an author who is, considering writing a book of their own personal story, you're absolutely right. There is going to be some emotional stuff coming up, depending how deep you're going with the things and how much you've processed it already in the past moving forward. A lot of people out in the world are carrying the weight of their past traumas with them, whether they be small T, big T traumas is less important than the way that you may or may not have processed your experience of them. And so this is what is going to be coming to the surface if you have not completely processed through those emotions. Now, to be clear, this is not all the storytelling. This is not all the meaning making. This is not all the judgment. This is simply allowing, accepting in those uncomfortable, difficult emotions. And the more that we do that, the more we allow them, give them space, the less we end up resisting. The resistance is what causes them to cling to us. And then we're carrying that shit like a sack of, I don't know, something real heavy. I'm out of metaphors this morning, but something real heavy. We're dragging it. We're trying to move forward, but it's heavy. And so we keep looking back and we're, oh my God, it's so heavy. And I keep looking back and I keep reminding myself and I keep seeing this thing. But as long as we are trying to leave it behind instead of just literally taking it on board and saying, this is part of me, this happened to me, I'm a whole human who can feel all of these things, we can allow it to be free of us, right? So in the allowing, we let that chain, that resistance, that connection loosen. And then we don't have to carry that heavy load. It gives us so much more mental capacity to then move forward. And there's a lot more to that. There's a lot of inner child things and all of this, the trauma and all of those pieces. But it's just to say that we have to feel those emotions. We have to feel it to heal it, right? So we can't avoid it any longer. And this process of writing a book will absolutely dig up anything that you have not yet processed. So being aware that will come as part of the process gives you a leg up, because now you're aware this is probably going to come up. So you don't need to be alarmed. You don't need to layer on guilt and shame for feeling those things. You can know they're going to come up, and you can then choose intentionally to welcome them. You're like, oh, okay, this is coming up for me to feel, so I can release it. It's a beautiful process, honestly, but one that can seem daunting, right? Especially if immediately you're getting into those sort of triggered, activated spaces.
Yes, I love everything that you just said. And I love the fact that this really does, everything that you said relates to our people-pleasing tendencies as well. And when you like I said, when you meet somebody or when you see a friend, say, hey, how are you? And in our culture, it has become acceptable to say, I'm great, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? But really, internally, we might not be fine, but it has become so prominent and so commonplace with a people-pleasing response.
A nicety.
A nicety, yeah, 100%. And another really important point of what you mentioned is what happens with all of those emotions and all of that energy. Guess what? It stays inside of you. And it's not only just that heavy bag that you're carrying, it stays in your chakra system. So, and not all times, of course, but I want everybody listening and I want everybody watching to start to realize if something is happening in your life that's emotionally, or something that has come up, something that's re-triggering something in your past, and all of a sudden you're getting a lot of neck pain, or you're getting headaches, or you're getting lower back pain, or there's something else happening inside of your body, and you're like, wow, where did this I want you to think about if that's possibly connected to something you're feeling emotionally, because this is real. The fact that our emotions are very much related to our physical body,
Yeah.
and understanding that and being okay with knowing, and like you said, allowing those emotions to be released somehow. And there are lots of different ways to do that. You can talk, there's writing, there's journaling, there's and writing a book is different than journaling. Let's be clear. Journaling is for you. Writing a book is for your reader to teach them something. Memoirs teach. Memoirs are not just for you. If you are writing a memoir for you, it is a journal, it is a diary, and that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Different purpose.
Completely different purpose.
Yeah.
One of the recommendations I always give as well is anybody who wants to read or who wants to write a memoir, wants to write a fiction book, I want you to read in the genre you want to write in. Because if you don't understand what we're talking about today and you don't understand these vulnerability factors, the emotions, all of this, if this is completely brand new territory for you, and you say to yourself, gosh, I've always wanted to write a book, but I don't really understand a lot of what, they're talking about today, then I want you to pick up some memoirs, some personal growth books, and I want you to see how these authors have become vulnerable to you, to the reader, so that we can really get in to their kitchen, get into their living room, get into their bedroom. And we need to be able to come into your life in those ways. We can't just be in the doorway. And I just came up with that analogy, but I like it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like those on the fly sort of analogies. They just pop in just when they're needed, right?
Exactly.
And absolutely, the body keeps score. We already know this. We know that the physical pain manifested in our body is emotional related.
Yeah.
Aside from, I guess, it's a blunt force trauma, for example, maybe less so. But
right.
We are still experiencing that. And the incredible and slightly annoying part of this is that we are still the observer of it. And the problem is we can observe whatever the painful situation is. It could be an uncomfortable emotion. It could be perceived as physical pain. The majority of our suffering comes from the mind and the stories and the judgments and the meanings. And in that way, we are often compounding the issues through our thoughts, through our mind. And so again, just back to the observer. If you can take a step back and observe whatever is coming up, it is always coming up for your best and highest, so that you can take a look at something that's bubbling below the surface. It's ready for you to experience, so it can be released, right? It's like coming to the surface for you to accept, to acknowledge, to stop resisting, to stop trying to shove it back down, but really just to allow it into the open. And we know that, again, here's another Brenéism, but shame doesn't survive in light of empathy. So when we bring things to the surface, we create an opportunity for empathy, to see, to witness, to experience, to be human.
Yes.
And then it releases itself. And so if anyone out there is struggling with those kind of things, I hope that there is some wisdom tucked away in this, even if it's not specifically about the writer's mindset. I mean, everything is, right? Because everything, all the mindset is the mindset. So
yeah, absolutely. And a lot of what we're talking about today with the writer's mindset and energy and time and knowledge and these various factors, and it is really important to learn how to observe what you are thinking. And if you find that you're unable to do that, I mean, that's why therapy exists. That's why going out to a girls' night exists. That's why, like I mentioned, journaling exists, meditations. That's why healers exist. There are a lot of different levels of support that you can receive.
Yeah.
Something that I always ask in one of my first conversations with every single person who I talk to is, what type of support do you feel you need to accomplish your goal? And it's amazing to me how many people don't actually know because they're not being honest with how they're spending their time and their energy. And what I encourage all of you to do is start to be honest and realistic about what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. And if somebody comes to me and says, I want a book ghostwritten in 2 months, and they say, well, do you really truly understand how much time that's going to take? Both of I can do my job in the best way possible. And once somebody truly understands the time aspect, they might say, oh, I understand this might take a little bit longer than I initially anticipated because of what you explained. So being honest and realistic and raw about these factors do very much deal with how we approach our creativity and how we approach these larger book projects.
Absolutely. And that plays into the piece of the knowledge that we were talking about earlier as well, because when we gather more knowledge, more information, we become more aware. And when we're more aware, we're more equipped to deal with the situation at hand. So sometimes it's just a case of lack of knowledge, lack of information that can really, create this awareness so that we can move forward with the full knowledge of what it's going to take. And sometimes it's just a matter of taking the knowledge that we already have and putting it into action, which both of those two things can really be served by having someone in your corner, whether that be a coach, mentor, support team, whatever that might look like, house cleaner, because, hey, like you said, a lot of the mental clutter as well. So anyways, bringing that knowledge into practice to realize it in your experience, that's the intention here. And to me, I'm not a big goals kind of gal. I'm not like here's why. I find that goals are very outcome driven. And I find, first of all, that I have greater success. And also I enjoy the journey a lot more when I'm focused on the intentions. Mm-hmm. And so that is the piece that I can control, as you touched on before, the piece that is in our control. That's me. That's me. That's my mindset. That's me stepping into the observer role and consciously choosing, oh, look at that. Look at that thought. Isn't that interesting? And they're not all our thoughts. So if we can step back for a moment, we can start to realize, oh, that's not serving me. And I'm not going to take that one on board. I'm not even just going to let that one drift on by. And then we can choose where to focus our thinking with intention, with the intentions that we desire to create the that we're going to have. And I believe we're here as humans to bring the theoretical knowledge into a human lived experience, because without that experience, it is just information. It doesn't mean really much of anything without the experience. So,
right. And that goes to show that these experiences that you just discussed, it has to do with the fact that there are a finite number of generic general ideas in our world, and they are generic for a reason, because it's like white bread, and white bread does not have anything on top. But some people like hummus, some people like peanut butter, some people like jelly, some people like cheese. It doesn't matter, but all of those toppings are various experiences that we as humans bring to that generic idea or that generic piece of white bread, because otherwise it would just be sitting there, a piece of white bread. And I don't know about you, I only know, ducks like stale white bread, but not humans. So
unless it's a crouton, then I think we're all on board. A lot of us would be on board for a crouton, but there's an in-between stage as to no.
That's true. That's true. And croutons are seasoned. So there we go.
True. See? Yeah. All the ways. We're all unique, and we've all had who could even count how many billions of moments that we've experienced until now that have landed us right here, right now, in this now moment, are accumulation of all of those moments and beyond. Beyond for the however, I don't even know what science is saying, billions of years that has contributed to this whole trajectory to be right here, right now, in this moment.
Yeah. And that brings up another really important point, is the fact that we all have all of these experiences. And sometimes I'll get people who have so many experiences and don't know what direction to go in because of the vast amount of crazy, wonderful, amazing experiences that they have had. So I encourage somebody like that to look and see, what message is it that you really truly intend to share with your target readership? And there are a variety of different memoirs. Something that a lot of people don't know is you can write more than one memoir. A memoir is not an autobiography. An autobiography is when you're writing your life story from birth till now, till the present moment. If somebody comes to me and says, oh, I still have so much life left to live, I say, great. Your memoir doesn't have to be about now. Your memoir can be about when you were ages 5 to 20 years old, if that's what you want. If that's your coming of age memoir, then that's okay. Or you can write a memoir about your experience in some foreign country and what you learned and what you were able to bring back to your life in the US or what have you. That matters a lot in terms of, again, adding to your knowledge bank. If you don't know that, these are all things that I talk about with clients that are really critical for you to understand and know before you start the writing process. This also has to do with any type of nonfiction, self-help, business, thought leadership. You can write multiple thought leadership books. We see it all the time. Look at Tony Robbins. There are millions of books that are written by the same authors, and they have something different to say about a generic idea. It always comes back to that.
Yeah. And your message is unique because of all of those experiences that have led you here. There is literally no one else who could tell it from the same standpoint that you could. And the beautiful thing is that even if it's very similar to something else, language is perceived differently by different people. So when you tell your story, it will be relatable to one person. And when a different person reads the other story, maybe that one will be a little bit more relatable. But there are 8.8 billion people on the planet, and there are certainly a chunk of them that need your specific version of whatever that information is, because that delivery will be the most relatable option for them.
Yes, I completely agree. And that's the same idea as I heard the other day, oh, there's so many podcasts out there. And I say to somebody, well, what exactly do you want to say on a podcast? I was talking to somebody this morning and said, oh, I'd like to connect you with so-and-so, a friend of mine in the entrepreneurship world. And she said, oh my gosh, I just heard about her podcast. And I just thought that was an amazing connection, that you don't know whose life you're going to change with your creative endeavor. And it is so imperative to continuously remember that you can add to somebody else's knowledge bank based on your experiences.
And I mean, ultimately, I think that's what a lot of us are attempting to do, because we've gone through an experience, we've lived it, we've turned that theoretical into experiential knowledge, and now we have a shortcut. Now we have the wisdom that we gleaned from that experience. Maybe it was very uncomfortable, but now we have this wisdom, and that wisdom holds a lot of power. It can potentially have the impact of changing someone else's life if we share it with the right person at the right time. And so that is the beautiful gift of the struggle, the challenge, whatever it is. Again, These are lots of stories that you're telling yourself about it. Ultimately, those obstacles that you've overcome all have a purpose. And the purpose is your highest evolution. And so when you start to see the lessons, the nuggets, the wisdom in those experiences, now you've got a lot to share with people out in the world. And literally, this is how I believe we can change the world from the inside out, by doing this inner work. It's our work to do, but we don't have to do that work alone. So if you're out there and thinking, I really want to write a book, I have so much in me, I'm not sure where to start, I mean, reach out to either one of us. If you felt like either of us could support you in wherever you're at in that process, I invite you to reach out, because we want to help you to get there. We want to help you to get your unique message out to the world, because literally someone out there is waiting for you to do that right now. So Danielle, please let us know if you have any specific offers that you wanted to share today, and as well, just how people can get in touch with you if they're catching this a little bit later on in the replay or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to reach me is go to my website. So that's the Soul-Aligned Ghostwriter.com. And you can email me. You can actually schedule a consultation, and I will personally text you so that I can learn more about what you are wanting to do with your creative endeavor. And another great way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. So you can find my name, Danielle Perlin-Good. It's Perlin-Good on LinkedIn. And I do want to share, for those who are listening in the next month or so, that I will be starting a small group writing accountability program. I have several women already registered, looking for a couple more. This person has to be highly motivated, intelligent, interested in having a group like this for 12 weeks. We're going to be meeting on a Friday afternoon. It's going to start the first week of August. It's going to be a no judgment, high energy zone. It doesn't matter what type of book or what genre you're writing in. What matters to me is the energy that you bring to the room. We're not going to be discussing politics. We're not going to be discussing your favorite color. We're going to be discussing your book and your truth. That's what's important to me.
That sounds like an incredible opportunity. So anybody out there looking to get that level of support and accountability to really prioritize your writing, this is an excellent way for you to do that. So absolutely reach out to Danielle, get inside of this container, get the support, and get those words on paper, my friends, or on the screen and then on paper. You know what I mean? We're in an interesting time, aren't we? Thank you so much for sharing this space with me, for delivering incredible value. I love this conversation. Obviously, you can tell this is things that I love to talk about. And so I appreciate you sharing this time with me. A little coffee this morning. See, it says nice on the other side. Not so nice, because nice means pleasing and agreeable. And we're not really doing that anymore here. So
I agree.
Kindness all the way, and maybe just a side of naughty.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. I've loved this conversation as well. And just know, all of you have that story inside of you. You can do this.
Absolutely. If anybody has questions, comments, or would just like any more information, feel free to leave them below. And otherwise, I hope you have a most amazing rest of your day. I love you all. Now let's go do some epic shit, shall we?
Are you ready to break free from self-doubt and embrace a life of empowerment? Introducing the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal, the ultimate companion to my international best-selling book, Unstuck for Women. This beautifully designed journal will take you on a transformative 90-day journey of gratitude, self-discovery, and personal growth. Each day, you'll dive deep into powerful insights, prompts, and exercises that build confidence and self-love. Align your actions with your desired feeling state and watch as your life transforms. This journal is your key to unlocking the extraordinary woman within you. So get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth like never before. You can order your copy of the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal today. Unleash your limitless potential. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Create Your Happy's special bonus season. I trust this real, raw, uncut conversation will fuel your inner fire and provide you with the practical action steps needed to propel you forward. It's time to unlock your path to consciously creating an impact and leaving your legacy. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with other women in your life who could use a little extra inspiration today. My guest and I would love to hear from you. You'll find the links to connect with us both in the show notes. And if you're ready to take your life, relationship, and business to the next level, I invite you to consider working with me one-on-one. Together, we'll up-level every aspect of your beautiful human journey to create the fulfilling relationships that you desire and deserve. Reach out to learn more about how we can embark on this transformative journey together. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.